The apartment was shrouded in dim light, except for the bluish glow of the monitors. Lucas spun in his chair, excited, while the other four sat on the couch, each with a different expression. He held up his phone, showing a blurry image of a rusty gate lost in the middle of the woods. "Dude, I swear this video is gonna blow up. It's gonna be the biggest video on our channel," Lucas said, his eyes shining. Felipe shook his head, skeptical. "Lucas, that's an urban legend. That prison doesn't even exist." "It does," said Renal for the first time that night in a low voice. "Some people disappeared there. Folks who went snooping and never came back." Marina crossed her arms, her gaze hard. "And you guys really want to do this? Trespass on private property? That's a crime, you know? Just to film a video. I can't believe you're taking this seriously." Lucas smirked, mocking. "Relax, Marina. That place has been abandoned for decades." She leaned forward, her voice firm. "Even if it's abandoned, it doesn't mean we can just go in. What if we get caught? What if the police show up? Or I don't know. What if we get hurt?" Lucas laughed, looking at the others for support. "The police! Out there in the middle of the woods? Come on. And if we get hurt, well, that'll just make the video even cooler." Marina scoffed, exasperated. "You don't get it. I don't believe in those stupid stories about creatures or people disappearing. That's all made up. But my fear is real. We could get arrested, Lucas." For a moment, the group fell silent. Then Lucas took a deep breath, stepped closer to her, and spoke in a persuasive tone. "We've done way more dangerous stuff before. This is just one more exploration. And this time, we're gonna go viral." Marina stared at him, her eyes full of doubt and anger. But then she looked away. "You guys are crazy," she muttered, getting up and walking to the window, where the rain was drumming against the glass. "So, we're in?" Lucas asked, turning to the others. One by one they nodded, half laughing, half tense. Marina stayed silent, staring out at the city, thinking that maybe this would be the last time she'd see that view. The old van came to a jarring stop in the middle of the dirt road. The silence that followed was heavy, muffled by the towering trees that seemed to squeeze the path from all sides. Lucas turned off the engine and looked back, wearing that smile Marina already hated. "End of the line, guys. From here on, it's all adventure." Felipe looked out the window, frowning. No signs of life. Not even a signpost. Not even a fence. Renan grabbed the camera and started recording, slowly panning across the dense forest. "Better this way," he muttered, with that same enigmatic tone as always. Tiago got out, pulling the bag with the gear, taking a deep breath of the humid, heavy air. Marina was the last to step out, arms crossed, taking in the smell of wet earth and moss. She looked around uneasy. "We should at least let someone know where we are." Lucas let out a short laugh. "Why, we won't take long. Just some shots, a few dramatic scenes, and done. Time to get famous." Felipe took 2 steps into the overgrown trail but stopped. "You sure this is the way?" Lucas raised his phone, showing the map he'd downloaded earlier. "The trail leads straight to the outer fence. From there, we go about another 200 meters and we're there." They started walking in single file, the forest quickly closing in around them. After a few minutes, Lucas stopped and looked at his phone screen. No signal. Marina stopped too and checked hers. And mine too. Nothing. Renan and Tiago did the same. Zero. Not a single bar. Felipe let out a nervous laugh. Welcome to the last century. Lucas shrugged, putting the phone away. Relax. I brought a power bank. We won't run out of battery. We'll be able to film everything we need. Marina spun around abruptly, her voice sharp with irritation. No battery, fine. But if we need to contact someone, we can't. No one knows we're here, and we have no signal. If something happens, we're screwed. For a second, no one said anything, just the muffled sounds of the forest all around. Lucas broke the silence with a smile. But it's gonna be fine. And he kept walking down the trail, as if Marina's words carried no weight at all. They followed, the forest closing in even more, the air getting heavier and more humid. After about 20 minutes, Felipe's compass, hanging from his backpack, started spinning on its own. What the hell? He muttered, grabbing the object. Marina came closer, looking too startled. Is it broken? Felipe shook it. The needle kept spinning, out of control. Maybe. Some interference. I don't know. Lucas didn't even stop. Or maybe it's just the forest trying to freak you out. You guys are way too jumpy. They kept going, but the tension grew silently. Suddenly, Marina stopped abruptly. Did you hear that? The others stopped. For a second, nothing. And then, a faint whisper, distant, or way too close. Just the wind. Tiago tried, swallowing hard. But they all knew. Out there, the wind didn't make that kind of sound. Renan raised the camera and whispered as he filmed. First recording, 3:47 p.m. We heard something. Lucas smiled nervously and motioned for them to keep going. And so one by one they kept moving deeper down the trail, farther and farther, with less and less chance of turning back. The group moved slowly along the narrow trail. The air felt increasingly dense, heavy, as if it took extra effort just to breathe. Suddenly a loud snap echoed through the forest. Everyone stopped immediately. What was that? Marina whispered, eyes wide. Renan turned the camera toward the sound, his hands trembling. It must have been an animal, Tiago said, more to himself than to the others. An uncomfortable silence settled over them. Then suddenly something small and fast darted across the trail ahead of them. Marina screamed, instinctively jumping back. The camera shook. Felipe laughed nervously. Relax. It was just a rabbit. They looked at each other, forcing a smile. But their eyes betrayed the fear that was now beginning to take hold for real. They kept walking, the sounds of the forest now seeming to whisper things they couldn't quite understand. After a few more minutes, a strange smell began to fill the air. What's that smell? Tiago asked, covering his nose with the sleeve of his shirt. The odor was strong, acidic, like something rotten, but different, almost metallic. Renan stopped filming and pointed. There, Beside the trail, partially hidden among the vegetation, was what looked like a metal structure, old, rusty, covered in moss. Marina approached hesitantly, pushing branches aside with her hand. It looks like a grate? A hatch? Lucas stepped forward, crouching. An air vent or an old access? Must be part of the abandoned prison facilities. He knocked on the structure. The metallic sound reverberated through the forest, making everyone flinch. "Don't mess with that," Marina shouted. Lucas laughed and stood up. "Relax. It's fine." But at that moment, a dull noise coming from deeper in the forest, to the left of the trail, cut through the tension. They all turned at the same time. Silence. Then see another sound. More rhythmic, like footsteps or knocks. Impossible to tell. "Okay, who's there?" Felipe shouted, his voice cracking at the end. No response. Only the distant sound of something moving, or someone. Renan raised the camera, trying to focus through the trees, but mist was slowly starting to form among the leaves, like a thick, damp curtain. We should go back," Marina murmured, stepping back. But Lucas stood still, staring intently in the direction of the sound. And then a figure, too fast to be identified, too dark to be natural. It moved between two trees about 30 meters away, disappearing into the mist. Did you see that?" Renan shouted, almost dropping the camera. "We saw," Lucas replied, his voice lower than ever. An absolute silence fell over the group. Until the sound started again, but this time, coming from multiple directions, surrounding them. "Run!" Lucas shouted, pulling Marina by the arm. They bolted down the trail, not daring to look back. The sounds around them grew more intense, closer. "It's coming after us," Felipe screamed, nearly tripping over an exposed root. The mist was now thick like a veil, obscuring their vision. Renan gripped the camera tightly even as he ran, the footage shaking violently. Suddenly, Tiago stopped abruptly. "There! An opening!" Between the trees, half hidden by foliage and a tangle of vines, a breach in the side of an old concrete structure, dirty, corroded by time. Without thinking, Lucas squeezed through the opening, helping Marina in after him. One by one, they all entered, panting, their eyes wide with fear. As soon as the last one was inside, the sound of whatever had been chasing them stopped. Suddenly, absolute silence. For a few seconds, no one said anything. They just breathed heavily, their backs pressed against the cold concrete walls. Then Marina broke the silence. "Where are we?" Renan slowly turned the camera, illuminating the space with its built-in light. The walls were damp, covered with dark stains of mold and rust. Exposed, broken pipes dripped steadily, creating a sinister echo. On the floor, ancient, corroded tracks, like those for a cart, cut across the narrow, long corridor. Felipe, gasping, ran his hand along the wall, feeling the rough texture of worn concrete. It's part of the prison, or an underground access. Tiago approached a crooked sign fallen to the floor. He lifted it with effort and read, his voice trembling. "Asa, Sector 7B, restricted access." Marina looked around, panicked. "We shouldn't be here. This is trespassing. It's dangerous." Lucas turned to her, still breathing hard. "It's more dangerous out there." They exchanged a silent look, weighing their options, but they all knew going back wasn't one of them. Renan adjusted the camera and muttered, "We're inside the prison. I don't know where, but we made it." Felipe gave a nervous laugh. "So yeah, the video's gonna blow up," but no one laughed. Outside, behind the foliage now concealing the breach, a sound, a scratching, as if something was just waiting. While they caught their breath, their eyes adjusting to the dimness, they all realized the same thing. Inside, everything felt dead. The air was cold still, thick with the scent of rust and mold. The walls, corroded by time, were covered with thick moss, and old electrical wires hung from the ceiling. No sound, except for the occasional drip of water, echoed through the empty corridors. No sign that the place had been touched by another human in years, or decades. "It really is abandoned," Tiago whispered, almost relieved, his voice faintly reverberating off the cold walls. Renan turned the camera again, capturing the silent immensity around them. There's no one, not a sound. But Marina gripped Lucas's arm tightly, and that's exactly why it feels even more wrong. They fell silent, listening only to their own breathing and the dripping water, while outside something was still waiting. The group moved slowly through the narrow, dark corridors. The weak beam of the flashlight cast long, distorted shadows on the walls covered in moss and cracks. The air seemed heavier with every step, as if each one was harder than the last. "This place is huge," Renan muttered, gripping the camera tightly, trying to capture everything. Though the focus trembled with his quickening breath, the corridor stretched endlessly, twisting at sharp angles, revealing even darker, more oppressive passages. Marina walked at the very back, almost glued to Lucas. "We should go back," she whispered. Lucas didn't answer. He just gripped the flashlight tighter, keeping his eyes fixed ahead, as if moving forward was the only option. There were no signs anyone's used this place for years. Felipe said, his voice low as if afraid to break the oppressive silence. Occasionally they passed half-open iron doors, revealing empty cells filled with filth, rotted wood, and some rusted stains on the floor they preferred not to identify. The place felt forgotten, abandoned by everyone, or almost everyone. There in the thick dust, almost imperceptible, a trail, like an irregular drag mark. Lucas approached and crouched down. Could be just an animal, but no one really believed that. Felipe cleared his throat. "We're not as alone as it seems." Renan kept filming, but his hand was starting to shake. Then suddenly, the metallic sound echoed down the corridor, coming from somewhere ahead beyond their line of sight. Everyone froze. "What was that?" Tiago whispered. Marina clutched Lucas's arm tightly. "We shouldn't have come." Lucas took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. If we run, we could get lost in here. Let's go slowly. They moved on, even more alert, even more tense. Every drip of water, every creak of old metal, every groan of the structure sounded like a muffled scream in the claustrophobic silence. And without realizing it, they had already gone too far, deeper than they should have, and closer to something they still couldn't understand. They kept walking, but the air felt even thicker, as if the prison itself wanted to suffocate them. The corridor narrowed, moisture running down the walls like cold sweat. Suddenly a faint whisper echoed. No one could tell where it came from. Marina stopped and looked at the others. "Did you hear?" But before anyone could answer, a dry sound came from behind them. They all turned quickly, flashlights trembling, but there was nothing. Only darkness. "Felipe, you okay back there?" Lucas asked, but there was no response. "Felipe," Renan called, aiming the light behind them, was no longer there. They stared, stunned, at the empty space where he had been just seconds before. He was right behind me," Marina stammered, her gaze desperate. "Sir, that's not possible. He couldn't have just vanished," Renan said, swinging the camera rapidly, capturing only empty corridors and closed doors. Lucas took a hesitant step back, shining the light on the floor. There in the dust, footprints. Felipe's tracks went up to a point and just stopped, as if he had been pulled or swallowed. We need to get out of here," Marina murmured, clutching Lucas's arm. But then a heavy breath, deep wet, echoed from somewhere. Very close. They whipped their flashlights around desperately, but only saw shadows stretching along the cracked walls. Panic was starting to set in. "No, it wasn't him. It was something," Renan whispered, trembling, lowering the camera for a second. 1 second. And in that second, a figure passed quickly at the far end of the corridor, too big, too silent. Marina gasped, "Run!" And they all bolted, down the only corridor that seemed to have no end, not realizing that one by one, they would be forced to disappear too. They ran through narrow corridors, turning abruptly at every fork, until they stopped, breathless, in a partially open room with a rusty iron door hanging from one hinge. The silence was almost absolute, broken only by heavy breathing. Marina leaned against the wall, gasping, "Where's Felipe?" Renan raised the camera, recording the group automatically, without realizing it. He disappeared," Lucas said, his voice breaking as he stared into the void ahead. "God, this makes no sense. How does someone just vanish like that?" Marina shouted, tears beginning to form. Lucas turned to her, holding her shoulders. "We're going to get out of here. We need to stay calm." But everyone knew that was a lie. Renan pointed the camera at the half-open door and shone the flashlight. "This isn't a building. It's a trap," he murmured. From the corridor beside them came a wet, dragging sound, like something being pulled across the concrete floor. Everyone froze. Renan, camera in hand, swallowed hard and whispered, "There's something here." Lucas signaled for everyone to stay quiet. They listened, breathing. Not theirs, something much bigger. Marina gripped Lucas's hand tightly, eyes wide. Then suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the end of the corridor, making them all shrink. "There must be another way," Marina whispered, pulling Lucas along. They left the room and ran together down another, narrower, suffocating corridor with rusty pipes leaking water along the walls. Renan kept filming, the camera shaking with the run, catching flashes of old doors, empty cells and darkness. They stopped again, breathless, and Lucas spoke, almost out of air. We can't split up." Renan turned the camera on himself, pale and sweaty, then accidentally swung the lens backward. There it was. At the end of the corridor, partly hidden by shadow and the cold fog coming from the walls, the creature, too tall, with twisted branch-like limbs. The skin looked like wet stone, covered in moss and fragments of rust. No eyes, but they knew it could see them. Renan froze, still filming, the zoom involuntarily highlighting the torn cracks in the creature's skin, and its mouth, or what seemed to be a mouth, opening slowly and silently. Renan tried to stammer. But at that moment, the creature moved. Too fast. The camera caught only a black blur, and Marina's muffled scream, "Hannah, no!" The image shook violently, a thud. The camera fell to the ground, tipped over, still recording, showing only the cold concrete side and a dark pool slowly spreading. The group now knew they weren't just exploring, they were being hunted, and one by one, they would disappear. Lucas and Marina pushed the heavy steel door, which gave way with a guttural groan, revealing a room lit only by flickering old green screens, still functioning. In the center, dozens of monitors showed black and white images of them. They showed the group from the moment they crossed the forest until now, running, hiding, being hunted. Suddenly, Marina froze. Her breathing became quick and shallow, chest rising and falling frantically. "Thanks, God," she murmured, stepping back, pressing against the cold wall. Lucas noticed. She started to gasp, eyes lost, hands trembling. "I want to get out of here. I want to get out of here," she repeated, clutching the collar of her shirt as if she couldn't breathe. Lucas held her face with both hands, bringing his face closer, trying to bring her back. Hey, look at me. Breathe. Breathe." Her wide, wet eyes met his. She nodded, breathing hard, trying to hold back sobs. He pulled her into a quick hug, and then they looked back at the monitors. And that's when they realized the creatures slowly emerging from the shadows in the images, hunting each of them. And on the other screens, men in white coats, cold-controlling gates, opening passages, guiding the creatures to them. Lucas grit his teeth, voice trembling. They're doing this on purpose." Marina looked at him, confused. He continued, pointing to the panels. "They're letting the creatures hunt us, like it's an experiment." She covered her mouth, holding back a scream. Lucas approached a panel filled with old tapes and recording devices. all still working, emitting mechanical clicks. Without thinking much, he pulled one tape out, trying to take it as proof. But as soon as he removed it from the slot, the tape started heating in his hands. "Shit!" he yelled, dropping it. And there on the cold floor, the tape caught fire by itself, burning in seconds, turning to ash before their terrified eyes. Marina looked desperate. Lucas tried another and another, but the same thing happened. Any attempt to remove the material caused it to self-destruct, as if the prison was programmed to prevent any evidence from leaving. Marina punched the table in frustration. They'll never believe us. Lucas grabbed her arm. "We need to get out of here now!" They ran through the damp, cold corridors, tension exploding inside them. But turning a corner, Lucas turned. She was no longer beside him. He shouted, his voice echoing emptily through the corridors. But there was no answer. Only the muffled sound of something being dragged. Lucas froze, eyes wide, his own voice echoing with the emptiness of the prison. Lucas ran, his heart pounding in his chest, every muscle begging him to stop, but he couldn't. Not now. Behind him, only the oppressive silence of Complex Zero and the deafening absence of Marina. The cold, damp corridor seemed to narrow with every step, as if trying to suffocate him. Then he stumbled, slipped in a muddy puddle, and fell. When he got up, he noticed a narrow opening at the bottom corner of the wall, partially hidden behind corroded pipes and hanging wires. Without thinking, he crawled inside. The smell of rot and rust burned his nostrils. Soon he was crawling through a narrow, soaking tunnel, with old sewage running beneath his knees. The only light came from the flickering flashlight he carried, its battery already dying. As he crawled, he heard far away voices. He stopped, holding his breath. From somewhere above, through grates and ducts, he caught the muffled sound of two men talking, probably prison operators. The kid managed to escape through the drainage sector, one said with disdain. The other laughed, unconcerned. "And we're going after him?" A pause. "Why bother?" the first replied. "If he survives this, no one will ever believe him. Leave him. He's already broken." Lucas closed his eyes, his stomach turning. Broken. He started crawling again, the flashlight beginning to flicker. Further ahead, the tunnel collapsed into a small shaft, a sharp drop, but there was no other way out. He took a deep breath and let himself slip down. He emerged into a foul-smelling creek, struggling until he reached a slime-covered edge. He crawled to dry land, his body exhausted, trembling, his eyes wide open, empty, when he realized he was outside. The cloudy sky hung above him, and around, dense, silent, damp forest. But Lucas did not celebrate. He just lay there, gasping, staring up at the dark canopy of trees, while terror and guilt consumed him. He had escaped, but no one would believe it. No one would ever know what happened inside Complex Zero. Lucas sits in a rigid chair, his gaze lost and empty, staring at the worn white wall in front of him. The fluorescent light buzzes, flickering faintly. Suddenly he begins murmuring, a monotonous phrase, almost a mantra, a whisper growing louder until it becomes an endless repetition. "I'm going to get you out of here." We're going to get out of here together. A nurse approaches, jotting notes in her clipboard. He doesn't respond, doesn't look at anyone. The phrase echoes through the empty room, each repetition filled with guilt, fear, and despair. In the window glass, the distorted reflection of a man trapped not only by the prison's concrete, but by the prison of his own mind. I'm going to get you out of here. We're going to get out of here together.